Hello and welcome to the REALink conversation series organized by the Lutheran Community Care Services, otherwise simply known as LCCS. I'm Augustine Antoine. Today is the third of a four-part special, and the topic, adoption here in Singapore. And joining me on the panel, we have two lovely ladies, Clarisse Ong, who is the mother of an adopted baby girl who's now 2 years old, and Hazel Phua, a mother of two adopted sons, who's also a non-constituency member of parliament, and she also runs an education business. Now, before we bring both ladies into the discussion proper, the LCCS team reached out to a group of people to get their reactions and primarily to carry their voices to two important questions. The first question, should children be told that they're adopted? And the second one, I will only adopt a child if... Now, let's watch the video and hear what they have to say.
I think children should be told that they are adopted because of transparency purposes and to be honest to them. I think it's the basic due respect that we can give to adopted children.
I think children should be told that they are adopted because that's part of love. The foundations and the pillars of love is fundamentally trust and honesty, but at least that's based on my definition.
Actually, I don't think so. If you can keep it as a secret, you should take it to the grave. I know it can be a lot selfish, but there are certain things that they don't need to know.
I think that children should be told that they are adopted for two main reasons. One is that they have the right to know, as they should know where they came from, just like how we all do. Secondly, because they will find out eventually, so it's better that it comes straight from their parents.
Children should be told that they are adopted because it is something that will follow them through their life. It shapes their identity.
Children should be told that they are adopted because it's worth finding out from another person, so it will affect their mental health or their relationship with their foster family if they were to find out from another person, for example.
Adoption is a very sensitive matter, and to avoid complexities later on in life, it's a good idea to gently break in the news and help the child settle in better as well.
Children should be told that they're adopted because at a very young age, they're able to understand also what is adoption, and they're able to understand that sometimes if they don't get the support or the family from their biological sense, they still are loved enough and they can still have a family from an adopted sense.
Of course, if there are some circumstances that I do come across someone that need adoption and I can afford, okay, and I know that I will love the person, the kid, wholeheartedly, I will.
If me and my wife is trying out for a kid and for some reason both of us is unable to get a kid, we might adopt a child.
I will only adopt a child if I'm financially and mentally stable enough to give the child a good life.
Okay, I'm open to the idea of adopting a child because I do think that many people think that family must be blood related, but we can be tied to each other just based on relationship alone.
I will only adopt a child if I'm unable to conceive. That's a very honest opinion because I feel that I still, as a woman, I still want to experience what pregnancy is like.
Definitely, I will take in a child because there are a lot of children out there who need that support as mother and father to come in, or even a family member, or even a place where they feel nurtured and supported and protected.
And so let's pick up on the reactions and the voices of these people who have responded to the two questions. And I'm going to bring Clarisse and Hazel into the discussion. I want to start by saying, please be comfortable with whatever you want to share, right? So, I mean, we want this to be a candid discussion, but at the same time, a comfortable discussion. So could I start with you, Clarisse? Your initial thoughts, reactions to what you heard?
Okay, of course they should be told because we build relationships based on trust. So we don't want to start off at the wrong footing. We don't want to build our relationship based on lies. So they have the right to know why where they are from. So it is important for me to tell her where she's from and to give her whatever information I have. So I do keep it with me, and any day she wants to know where she's from, what information I have, I I'll be very happy to give it to her.
Okay, there are a whole bunch of questions I want to ask you, but can I also just draw Hazel in, your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I totally agree with most of the respondents. I do believe that adopted children should be told that they are adopted. Again, for the same reason that Clarisse just shared, I also believe that honesty is the basis of all healthy long-term relationships. And therefore, is the deception that actually damages, causes injured feelings.
But one of them actually said, keep it a secret. I mean, I'm quite sure I heard that.
Yes, I heard that as well. But I feel that this is a matter that is going to, the truth is going to come out sooner or later. And you don't want your children to find out under circumstances that are beyond your control. That is the worst possible thing that can happen. So it's far better that you actually control the circumstances in which you tell them, so that you can prepare the ground and make it more acceptable to them.
I'll come back to you, Clarisse. So, I mean, I sort of interrupted you a little bit earlier, but right now your baby is 2 years old. So the question I really wanted to ask is, when do you decide to tell your child?
In fact, we started the process when she first came to us. So even though she's 2 now and she's a baby, she cannot quite understand the whole concept of adoption, but we feel that it's important to start the process now. So like when we pray nightly with her, we will pray and give thanks for her tummy, mommy and daddy who brought her to this world.
Okay, so that's how you do it.
Yes, and we read books to her about adoption. So we want to introduce the idea as early as we can, because we don't know when she will start understanding, and we want her to be able to ask questions. We may not be prepared to answer her questions, but we want her to have the ability to also explore that identity of her, which is maybe different from us.
Okay, I'll be honest, that's the first time I'm hearing that expression, the tummy mummy.
Tummy mummy, yes. So we refer to the biological parents as tummy mummy and daddy.
That's so nice. And yourself?
Yeah, actually I adopted the same approach. Way before my children were able to understand what is the meaning of adoption, we already started telling them that they are adopted. And as they grow up, we would use terms like, what is adoption? It means that you did not come out from mommy's tummy, and it was somebody else.
And your sons, how old are they now?
They are now 14 and 15 plus.
And they are aware?
Yes, they have always been aware that they are adopted, and not only they are aware, their friends are aware, their classmates are aware, their teachers are aware, everybody knows.
All right. I just need to probe a little bit deeper. I mean, so the questions I want to ask is also on behalf of our viewers. So please help us understand the adoption situation in the Singapore context. And of course, this entire program is going online. So I'm sure there'll be people watching this program from different parts of the world. Is it right to say that the identity of the birth mother is usually kept confidential? Is that the situation here in Singapore? Or is that made known?
Okay, it is up to you. So as adoptive parents, we have the choice whether we want to know who the biological parents are. We do know by name, by address, because we have to, these are all administrative procedures. But we do have the right to want to know, so we can if we want to. Yes.
I hope you understand why I brought it up, because eventually when the child grows up and when your boys grow up and they say, Ma, I really want to meet the person who brought me into this world, what happens next? Hazel?
Well, actually, I'm not sure whether, because my children are from Malaysia, so I adopted them through an agency, and the only thing that we knew about their parents is what is listed on the birth cert. So other than that, I actually don't have any other information.
So you would just tell them the truth, that you really do not have the information, right? And so have you shared that with your...
Well, they've never asked yet, so I've never had the occasion to... but I do think that I would withhold that information from them. And in fact, if they feel that they would like to know more about who their biological parents are, they would like to investigate, I would be supportive of that.
Feel free to jump in. I mean, I just have so many questions in my mind racing through my head. You wanted to add something?
Like Hazel, I have not met the biological parents. So, but we have the information on the birth cert, and we are open to giving her telling her anything that we know and giving her all the information should she ask.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about the second question that was posed to the people who responded. I will only adopt a child if, and then some of the reasons raised that I took down, it always centers around financial ability. Do I have the ability to take care of another person in my home? And then someone mentioned must be blood related. Again, any reactions, any thoughts on this?
I think this is a rather personal thing. Everybody have to make the choice that they are comfortable with. So I feel that what is most important is that you must be able to fully accept the child and love him or her as your own. So different people will have different criteria, and I really think it should be individual choices.
I feel the same way as Hazel. I think everyone make their own choices, but you should only adopt if your heart is big enough to accommodate a child for whatever circumstances. So the child may turn out to have special needs. So if you adopt a baby, you wouldn't know. And if you adopt a baby, you also will not know how the baby, whether he or she has medical conditions down the road. So you have to be prepared for all these circumstances and love the child no matter what happens.
In the process of doing research for this program, I've come across quite a number of cases where couples, because they couldn't have a baby for different reasons, and sometimes it's also medical, adopted a child. And then later in their life, they were able to have a child. And so they actually have an adopted child and one of their own. How does that unfold, you think?
I think that is a scenario that every prospective adoptive parents need to think about first before they adopt. That if one day they were to have their own biological children, that they would still be just as committed to the adopted children.
Nothing changes.
Yeah, nothing should change.
That was one of the considerations that we actually discussed about when we were in the process of talking about adoption. So we decided that whether or not it's an adopted child or it's our own child, there shouldn't be any difference. It's a child that we're talking about, and all children are precious. So there shouldn't be any difference whether there is blood relation or not. We are talking about a child here. So it's important that you must make that commitment to love the child no matter what.
Now, I really want to ask this one particular question that I feel is sort of like it's inside me. Very often people say we will adopt a child if, let's say I'm an Indian and I adopt a child from the same community, Chinese, Malay, and so forth. And is that the way things are in Singapore, or at least for the two of you? Is that how you see adoption? Because there are cases where families, couples have adopted children because they've been abandoned, and there have been natural disasters and so many other situations that have happened.
For me, my children are Chinese as well, and I believe that is probably the case for most adopted children, as in their race is probably the same as the parents. Well, just looking at the issue on its own, I don't really think that race need necessarily be a consideration or a criteria. But if you think about it from the perspective of the children, I've actually read about cases where, children who are adopted are of a different race from their parents, and also a different race from those in their community. And that actually creates problems for the child because they find it more difficult to fit in if they are visibly different. And their growing process is actually more difficult. So I feel that is also a consideration that we need to take into account, that it will be a smoother process if there is no race differences to deal with.
This was one of the considerations. We were thinking, should we adopt just any child that God places in our sight? Or should we think about adopting one of the same race? So we decided that this is a situation, or rather a factor that we can control. So we are going to try to control it by requesting for a child of the same race, so that in the growing up environment, there will not be a lot of differences. Yeah, but my daughter actually does not look Chinese. So you see, God works in very miraculous way. And yeah, so she is Chinese, supposedly Chinese, but she doesn't look like.
Yeah, and I brought this up because they talked about, those voices. I mean, if you were to adopt a child of another race, and you did that lovingly, it's so obvious from day one when the child starts to go to nursery or starts to interact. It's going to be very obvious. And sometimes even babies don't realize it. It's like, am I different? I mean, that's my mommy, right? And then society starts to tell you, no, you are different. That's not your mommy. So these are some of the challenges that children might face, or even older children who are adopted at a later age. So do you think it's going to be a challenge then?
Yeah, I do feel that it will be more difficult for the child, and it's best that they don't have to deal with this at a very young age.
You prompted me to ask another question. Most couples want to adopt when they're babies. Is that true? And could you tell us why?
I think it differs from different couples. So personally, we prefer to adopt a baby because we feel that if the baby joins us at a very young age, it will be easier for him or her to ease into the family. And because if you adopt a child who is slightly older, there will be other difficulties as well, like because you need to understand the story, where the child is from, and you need to understand the family circumstances he or she was previously living. And so there may or may not be complications. So we thought that it would be easier for us to adopt a baby.
For myself, actually, we did not make any conscious choice as to what age the child must be. But it just so happened that I guess maybe that is a very prevalent attitude. So when we approached the adoption agency, the children that we were shown are all, just a few months old. Yeah, so it turned out that way.
I would like to seek your help to help our viewers understand as well how complicated or difficult or straightforward is adoption in Singapore. Would you be able to shed some light on that?
Okay, my adoption was very long time ago. That's like 14, 15 years ago. So my recollection is a little bit hazy. But I do remember that it was quite a smooth process. I don't recall any difficulty.
But you mentioned agency. So there was a whole
Yes,
process.
but all of these adoption have to go through a licensed agency. Right. So they sort of like guide you through the process. You have to do the home study to make sure that you are eligible to adopt a kid, you have a suitable home environment and so on. But all relatively pain-free, I would say.
Okay, my experiences will be more current since my girl is only 2. So Hazel is right. We do have to go through quite a stringent process of... In fact, it can be quite intrusive because they do ask a lot of questions about your relationship, and rightfully they should. So you have to go through this thing called a home study report where they find out about your background, they check your financial status, and so all these checks may be very intrusive, but if you think about the well-being of the child, it is the right process.
So I'm going to turn it around. It keeps coming up a few times, financial ability. Can I ask, and maybe I'm naive, what if the couple has so much love but may not be so well-to-do financially, but they have all that love that will make up for whatever it is? Why can they qualify? Would they be able to adopt a child? Because I keep hearing this financial stability.
Actually, there is I think there is a certain criteria in Singapore that you have to. There is a minimum, although I cannot quite remember what it is, but there is a minimum, you have to have at least a fixed
And we can
income.
understand why it is there to primarily protect that infant who's going to be placed in your care.
Correct.
So you need to make sure that you can provide for the child. We understand.
Yes.
I have another question which I also want to raise on behalf of our viewers, is support. Did either of you have support either from your friends, your network, family members that saw you through those early days with your boys and in your case with your child?
Yes, actually, we were very blessed that we do know people who have adopted before, or through our friends, they link us up with couples who have adopted. So we hear their stories and we listen to their experiences, and that really helped a lot. And in addition, in Singapore, because you are Asian, they say when you marry, you don't just marry your spouse, you actually marry into a family. So it was important for us to also talk to them about it, see how they feel. And we are very blessed that actually everyone around us is very supportive.
Yeah, for me, because I actually live with my parents. So it was very important that we get their buy-in. Between myself and my husband, we were both very much for adoption. But I think my parents were a little more hesitant. So we have to...
May I ask why?
I don't know. I suppose my husband and I are not really taken with, that it has to be biologically ours. But maybe because adoption is less frequent in the old days, so older generation tend to be a bit more hesitant about such adoptions. So when I felt that it is very important, because since they're staying with us, this is the environment that my children will be growing into. I have to make sure that it is a conducive and supportive environment. And therefore, it is very important to me that my parents also support that decision. And so I felt that it is worth spending extra time to try and persuade them and get their buy-in before I actually do it.
So I admire both of you for your courage and for being candid. And I posed that question because the minute I heard you mention parents, that's why I wanted to.
Actually, we do have someone asking us before, what if the child that you adopt is unwell, or you discovered that he or she has some medical conditions? So my reply was, if I give birth to the child, there's no guarantee as well. The child may be sick, and you will still take care of the child and love the child unconditionally. So why should that be any different?
Point taken.
Yeah. And also allow me to add.
Please.
I subsequently learned about this. Initially, after my parents also agreed to the adoption, right? My mom and my dad started, helping us take care of the kids and all that. And I didn't know that they felt anything different. But it was subsequently later, I think maybe about 5 years later, that my mom actually confessed to me. She said that, actually initially when the baby first came, I still felt that he wasn't ours. But after 1 year, it's no difference. So yeah, and I totally never knew that she felt that way.
In fact, I had a cousin telling me that, I forgot that you actually adopted.
Yes, exactly. After a while, it's just something that is, no different from biological kids.
I'm going to tell you in advance, I traditionally do invite our panel members, panelists to share their parting thoughts. So before we close, just do hold firm to your topic and whatever it is you want to say. But right now, I just want to speak to our viewers out there. This program, in fact, all the programs in this series are not meant to be providing you all the answers. You may actually end up watching this program and you may have even more questions than answers. And that's precisely the purpose of the program, is to sort of start the discussion. And we sincerely hope you will click on the links and reach out to the LCCS team if you have questions, and I'm sure someone will come back to you and help you with your queries. But as we head into the home stretch, Clarisse, Hazel, perhaps I'll start with Hazel first. There were some very interesting reactions, and I think at the end of the day, people are entitled to their opinions, right? So right now, for you, Hazel, if someone were to come up to you and say, in Singapore, it's so difficult, there's so many challenges, why would I want to take on another additional responsibility, caring for a child? What would you say?
Well, like you said, this is really an individual choice, but I would say that parenthood has its own rewards. There are certain things that you can get from it that you will receive nowhere else. And in fact, you might find that helps with the pressures that you are facing in other areas of your life. For me, I have never regretted this decision to adopt. In fact, I think that it is one of the best decisions that my husband and I have ever made. And we really enjoyed the whole process of growing up together with our children. And I'm still, I think that parenthood will always be a mystery to most parents. You know, you always try and find out as you go along. Yeah, but so far it has been a really enjoyable journey.
Like Hazel, it is one of the best decisions that we have made. We have never looked back. We have never regretted this decision. Every day I look at her, I'm so in love with her. And I want to encourage parents. It's really not so difficult. But it requires a leap of faith, and it requires a lot of commitment that we have to say. And yeah, think about it, and there are always support around if you look for it.
And coming back to our viewers, please understand, today we're discussing adoption in the Singapore context, and of course it varies from country to country. So do your research and do find out what's the situation like in your country. And of course, if you're in Singapore, do reach out to the LCCS team. So ladies, final parting thoughts.
Okay, I have often come across parents who are thinking about adoption coming to me and asking me questions, and a lot of the times there are a lot of fears, but I would just like to say that actually most of the time these fears are self-imagined. It really isn't all that difficult. So have faith, make your decision. I feel that the most important criteria is whether you yourself are truly able to forget about blood connection, that you are able to feel that it makes no difference to you. That's the most important criteria.
Thank you, Hazel. Clarisse?
Okay. I feel that if you are open to the idea of adoption, as long as you have the space in your heart, the breadth, the depth in your heart to actually love the child, then yes, I think you should consider and give it a go.
All right. Clarisse Ong, Hazel Phua, thank you both for coming onto the program and sharing so much about your lives. We wish you both and your spouses and your children and your baby the very best. And so for all of you, you're most welcome. And for all of you who have been faithfully following the series, please do support the LCCS's work in facilitating adoption to give children a permanent, happy, and loving family. And you can do this through your own giving via the QR code that will appear on your screen. And with that, thank you so much for staying with us on this REALink conversation series. And so all I can say is bye for now.